Good afternoon and welcome to the Tea O'Clock News, brought to you by Simone Francisco Duita Vuvu. Here I'll be bringing you something local, something regional, something national, something international, in order to get your juices flowing. And talking of juices flowing, mine's an English breakfast. What's yours? Cheers. Let's now delve into the news in English. Local news of the day from the Bom Dia daily paper of Sorocaba, that the 13th month salary is likely to set to bring a boom to the local economy, as 192,000 workers and 107,000 retirees get ready to spend. Shopkeepers and store owners are reportedly rubbing their hands in anticipation of the public pumping an additional 383 million reais into the local economy by the end of the year. Perhaps, I was thinking, it's just an idea, we could dispense with the Gregorian calendar, which I never liked anyway, and spend our way out of the recession and put an end to the financial crisis in Europe. That way, we can all have a 13th salary and spend our way out of the recession. You know, very much like the positivist calendar proposed by the Frenchman, Auguste Comte. You know, in his 13th month calendar, he said that the 13th month should be named Bicha. So perhaps this means that by accepting a 13th month salary, we are all just a bunch of bichas. Moving on and talking about the 13th month salary, shopkeepers and downtown shopping areas and shopping centres in Sorocaba flung open their doors over the bank holiday of the Day of Black Consciousness in order to allow shoppers to go literally wild in the aisles. Check out that reference to Dale Winton, Supermarket Sweep, 90s TV in the UK. I wonder how many of these happy shoppers were thinking about the legacy of black slavery in Brazil, or maybe the effects of the government's policy on university quotas as they were melting the pieces of plastic in their pockets. Or perhaps they were thinking about another piece of news today in Cruzeiro do Sul, also from Sorocaba, about black workers receiving 39% less than their non-black counterparts. Maybe they were thinking about this, maybe they weren't. Regional news today, an article in the Folha de São Paulo. Another day, another public security crisis in the capital of São Paulo. Another day of slaughter, according to the Folha. Apparently, a gentleman named Gilbert Oak said that there were more deaths in the capital São Paulo than there were on the Gaza Strip. I find this rather odd, and I'm not sure if the statistics stack up. And the president of the PSDB in the state of São Paulo criticised Mr. Oak and said that his comments were somewhat ignorant and in bad faith. Of what, I ask myself? What does he mean of this bad faith? Of Mr. Oak's comparison, is he talking about? I just think that Mr. Oak's comments were ill-judged and maybe a little patronising or out of context. I mean, after all, how many Gazans in the Gaza Strip at the moment can bugger off to the Riviera de São Lourenço on the bank holiday and sit there on the beach and get wasted on caipirinha and not think about their city being at war? Not many, I imagine. Anyway, what I think we need for the security crisis in São Paulo is more police, more security, more spending on security, more spending on prisons, more prisons. That is the way to deal with this security crisis in São Paulo. And I'm sure that Michel Foucault would have agreed with me in his deepest sincerity. National news now, and a gentleman named Little Carlos Waterfall was freed from jail today after 9 months there. He was freed on the judgment by the courts that he would be allowed to serve a 5-year jail sentence in a semi-open prison. Now, what does this mean? What does this mean? A 5-year jail sentence in a semi-open prison. That means that if he accepts the fact that he has to do away with his political rights and report regularly to the courts, he is essentially allowed to be conditionally free. So what does that say about the penal code and the justice system in Brazil? Well, I'm not sure. I would say that Mr. Waterfall has got off rather lightly, hasn't he? It's strange how the justice system in Brazil can work in your favour if you're rich and if you're lucky enough to be able to slide down the greasy chute of freedom. Perhaps Mr. Waterfall will end up, as he will be allowed to, on the terms of his sentence, that he'll be able to study perhaps at the water park in Fortaleza. Perhaps this way he can teach them and pass on some of what he's learnt about surviving extreme drops and rides and appearing from them totally unscathed. Moving now into international news, and I'm afraid it's back to violence, and your president, Dilma Rousseff. It was interesting today, there was a columnist in the Folha de São Paulo, Clovis Rossi, who said that it was a shame that Dilma Rousseff was unable to be a little bit straighter with her audience in Madrid. On the one hand, she was giving advice on how Spain and Europe should get themselves out of a crisis, and in that speech she said that Brazil's position should be to avoid cultivating enemies and ignorance around the world. And Mr. Rossi questions this position and says that maybe Brazil needs to get off the fence and take a position. You know, how long can Dilma Rousseff sit on this giant illegal West Bank wall that's being built by Israel before she starts to get piles of complaints for her own people, like the esteemed Mr. Rossi, that perhaps she should take, as the leader of the state, some positions on these things around the world that she seems rather silent on at the moment. What's wrong, Mrs. Rousseff? You're burying your head in the sand, aren't you? You need to speak up. Speak up, Mrs. President. Speak up. And finally on the news today, there was 10 kilometres, which was above the average for this time of year, of tailbacks on the Marginal Pinheiros in São Paulo. More of this tomorrow at the same time, 5 o'clock on the 2 o'clock news. Thank you for listening. Good night.